Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wrestling Royalty. Welcome to Gimme a Hole, yeah. And thank you very much for joining us on this Friday evening. I hope you're very well. And my apologies to start off with. We didn't have a show last week. Decided to give it a little bit of a break. Let everyone kind of recalibrate as we move forward into a very exciting weekend or two for WWE. And of course, tonight, as you can see, we are going to be talking about NXT Battleground, which comes live this Sunday. So in 2 days' time, as time of recording, over in Las Vegas. And they're going to be using the UFC Apex arena for the first time. So this is the first real proper crossover what we've had between UFC and WWE. And they've decided to go with NXT as the first kind of guinea pig, I guess, for this this collaboration, as they're all owned by the same company, TKO Holdings. So yeah, there's going to be an interesting weekend, and we're going to be talking through the entire card. But it's a very exciting time for NXT. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it last week was because I was very excited about what happened a couple of weeks back on NXT. We had the introduction of Jordynne Grace is going to be challenging for Roxanne Perez and her NXT Women's Championship. So I was really keen. I wanted to speak about that. And then we also had the shock appearance of Ethan Page, which was fantastic because we had a couple of appearances that were maybe slightly rumored in some places, but it wasn't one that was ruined by social media gossip and rumors. It was two very sort of natural feeling appearances on a show that we didn't know we were going to get them. So we're going to go a little bit into detail about each of the matches. I know NXT is not always people's thing that they would like to watch week on week, but here at both Wrestling Royalty and Gimme a Hole, yeah, we have a lot of love for different promotions, different shows, and NXT is one of my favorites. And I know a couple of the lads on Gimme a Hole, yeah, as well are big fans of NXT as well. And quite frankly, at the moment, social media seems to be well behind it. I might refer to it as the black and gold brand because it's out of habit. It's something that I've had very close to my heart for a little while now, having been able to visit the Performance Center, or as it's been called over the times, Capital Wrestling Center, things like that. But yeah, we're going to go through the card. But yeah, let me know in the comments, are you excited to watch NXT? If you've never seen it before and you're tuning in for the first time, what is it that you're excited about? What is it that's drawn you into seeing it? Is it the introduction of TNA Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace? Are you a TNA fan? Something that we obviously are very keen on covering both on Gimme a Hole, yeah, and on WrestleSphere as well. You obviously see a lot of interviews with TNA superstars or stars on WrestleSphere. You can read loads of interviews. I believe there is actually one there with Jordynne Grace as well, so you can go check that out. And yeah, let me know if you are here for the first time. Welcome. This is our Friday night feature. We're going to be going through the card. We're going to be speaking about a little bit about the buzz that's going on around NXT at the moment, because it's really cool to see that WWE's third brand, the developmental brand, whatever you want to kind of call it, is getting a lot of plaudits at the moment. I even saw Dave Meltzer seem to begrudgingly give it a little bit of respect, saying it's full of younger people and younger gimmicks that can be drawing people in. We've obviously seen people move from NXT now onto the main roster. People like Bron Breakker are getting a big break over on Raw. Dragunov he's going strong, and he's kind of going to be moving into a big promotion with Breaker as well in the future, so that's really interesting to see. And then we've got a few people like Blair Davenport who are starting to heat up a little bit in vignettes and backstage promos, so I think we might see her maybe on SmackDown tonight. So yeah, lots of people moving across from NXT. It's also kind of become this new area for people who maybe they are a little bit underwhelmed or disillusioned with the way that their careers going on the main roster, and they've taken a step across to Florida. Now, I don't want to call it a step down because I think there's a lot of good things, and it would be a bit disrespectful for NXT to be looked at as a step down, but certainly in the sense of it's a smaller crowd, it's much more intimate. It is smaller in the sense of like what it is they're trying to achieve, but they are also achieving big things at the same time. So you've got the likes of Natalya, or you've got Baron Corbin, who's now gone back to SmackDown after doing a little bit of a tenure on NXT. And then we're seeing Shayna Baszler's come back on there. We're seeing people like Mia Yim. We're going to see a match where Mia Yim's in the ladder match for the Women's North American Championship. We'll go through that. We've got the Good Brothers, who obviously featured last week on SmackDown with AJ Styles. but they've got a tag team title shot here at NXT Battleground. So again, we'll cover that off. Really keen to hear your thoughts. What about people taking that step across to NXT, maybe to give themselves a little bit more confidence, maybe to give the people in NXT a little bit of a rub and experience, going up against people who have been on Raw and SmackDown for a few years. There's a lot of sort of upside to doing that. But is there a downside? Let me know in the comments. Is it something you like to see? Is it not something you like to see? Is there anyone that you particularly think, actually, they should move from Raw or SmackDown? They should move across to NXT. So let me know in the comments. But yeah, we're going to be having a chat now. You lucky things, it is just me tonight. Sam is away on a holiday. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That would mean that SmackDown will not be streaming tonight on Give Me a Hole. Yeah, there won't be a watch along as far as I'm aware. But I think Sam will be able to update you whether it will be coming back next week. But he is currently enjoying a well-deserved holiday and recharging those batteries. But yeah, keep making sure that you are subscribed to both Wrestling Royalty and Give Me a Hole, yeah, and you'll be the first one to know when a live stream or any of the videos going live. You obviously got the whole series that Ant's doing across on 2K24. You've also got the Howdy's Hangouts with Dom, so you get to see all the kind of spooky stuff that's going on, and Dom will cover that in great detail, and you'll pick through all the little clues and things that are going on. And let's face it, they are ramping up. Maybe we'll see a couple of those clues pop up on NXT Battleground this weekend as well. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. But we are also edging closer. Next weekend, WWE is coming across to the UK. They're going to be up in Scotland, up in Glasgow or Glasgow or whatever it is that they said, or however bizarrely they're going to pronounce it. But yes, they are going to be in Glasgow next week for Clash at the Castle. And Drew McIntyre is doing a lot of media work at the moment. You might be able to see that on some of the other media channels that we have across the UK. But lots of good work going on there. Will we see CM Punk? Things like that. Well, I'll let you guess what next week's Friday night feature is going to be about. Of course, it has to be about Clash at the Castle. It will come after SmackDown next week because SmackDown is airing at 7 p.m. in the UK. Again, I don't know if in the US they'll wait, put it out later sort of thing. But I'm sure we'll be doing a live watch along on SmackDown next week. So join us for that because it'll be a lovely time for you people in the UK or Europe. It's a 7 p.m. start in the UK, as I believe Clash at the Castle is as well. So let's get started. NXT Battleground, as you can see from this graphic here, is coming live from UFC Apex on this Sunday, June the 9th. And it is a 1 a.m. in the UK or 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be going through the entire card, and I thought it would be probably the best idea to have Roxanne Perez and Jordynne Grace be the ones on the cover here because, yeah, it's not very often that you see a different promotions champion come across. But that is what we have. We will go through that. I think that's going to main event, so we will talk about it at the end, however. What we are going to kick off is a match to crown the inaugural Women's North American Champion, and we're going to have a 6-woman tag team match here. Now, again, really interested to hear your thoughts on this because the way this has kind of been pieced together is having was it a combine at the NXT Performance Center, and then from that, the way that we kind of got it was they then ranked the top 12 people, and then the top 12 were the ones who then would go on to have qualifying matches against each other, and we had the likes of Sol Ruka, who you can see front and center. She was the one who finished number 1 in the combine, so she's very athletic. If you've ever watched it, that soul snatcher move that she has is absolutely incredible. So yeah, it's definitely worth seeing it. Some of these names might not actually be well known for some people, so I'll go through it. We've got Sol Ruka, who is front and center. She's the blonde in the middle. You've then got Lash Legend. Lash Legend is above her in the pink. You've then got Fallon Henley. She is on the bottom right hand side there. You've got Jada Parker, who is on the bottom left. You then got Mishin, who you might also know as Mia Yim. She's top left. And you've got Kalani Jordan, who is top right. So obviously from that list, there's some people who are a little bit more developed on NXT. There's obviously Mishin's come in. There's a bit of more of an experienced hand in here. But for the majority of people who might just watch the main roster, these names are unknown. So it's really cool that they're going to give this particular belt a chance to go to someone who will be able to develop it. Sol Ruka, I think, is a bit of a fans' favorite, but you've also got the likes of Kalani Jordynne as well. She's very popular when they go into the Performance Center as well. And I've noticed that Jada Parker seems to have quite a big following, a cult following on social media as well. So this will be a really interesting one. A lot of different styles going on here. This will just kind of depend on how long they want to keep this new belt on someone, and really start to build that prestige around a new women's belt, a mid-card belt, which is, I think, is very fascinating, because this is something I think the main roster is crying out for. The roster is becoming stacked. NXT is very good at featuring women's matches, and you'll see on this card alone is a 6 match card, and half of them are women's matches, which is great. NXT, out of every promotion and every kind of division, it's the one that gets the most shine week on week. Like, if you watch NXT on a weekly basis, you'll see women's matches feature very prominently. And maybe it's a directive in terms of NXT will always be that developmental conveyor belt of talent. And maybe the main roster has said, we need more talent bringing through on the women's division, because we want to bolster that. We want to give fresh new faces to the crowd. And this is where NXT comes in. And this is what NXT should be used for, is, can we move talent across? Can we make talent shine, and then give them a gimmick, give them something to get their teeth into, get them well trained and a cult following, so when they come up, they're ready to go straight in. And I think you've got 6 very good talents here. It's difficult to kind of count Mishin in with that, because she obviously does feature on SmackDown, hasn't really had too many opportunities, but she has here and there. So very interesting one to have here. So yeah, let's see who's going to win this one. I'd like Sol Ruka to win, because I'm a big fan. I think she's so athletic. She's got a great look. She has that kind of like surfer gimmick, but it's not too prevalent. It's not over the top. She's just very laid back. I'm also, to be honest, I like Fallon Henley. I think since they've turned a heel, it's given her a little bit more of an edge. Maybe a title run is something that could maybe push her on a little bit further as well. But equally, Lash Legend, big fan favorite in the Performance Center. Week on week, she gets huge applause. So be interested to see how the UFC Apex audience respond as well. So let me know in the comments who you're going to go for. I think this one's going to go to either Sol Ruka or Fallon Henley, personally. Nothingness Void, yo, what's good with you? Nice to have you in, man. I hope you're having a lovely Friday. Let me know if you're going to be watching NXT Battleground, but I appreciate you watching and tuning in. You forgot Fallon Henley turned heel. Yeah, it was interesting. They were almost turning her into like a sort of like Natalia gimmick, I guess, where she's like everyone's friend, and then kind of just snapped and had enough. And now she's kind of like, I think they're just trying something new with her, because that's what NXT is for. Like, let's see if she can handle a heel gimmick for a little while, because she was kind of that really like goody, and they even had that long rivalry with Tiffany Stratton, where like, Tiffany Stratton lost and she had to go be like a stable hand or something for like a week or a day or something. But yeah, Fallon Henley was a face in that. And obviously before that, she was with Josh Briggs in that tag team. So all that stable. So yeah, let's see what she can do with the heel gimmick. But I think giving her a belt would give her something a little bit extra to get her teeth into. I also thought Booker T was on really good form. He has been for a little while, but particularly when he was presenting this new one, this new belt, and having this open forum for the women who are going to be involved on Sunday. He was very good in it, and yeah, commentary. He seems to be finding his lane, and like the NXT commentary team works so well for what they're doing. So I hope they continue with Booker T on there. And Vic, I guess at some point, Vic's probably going to have to make the step up into the main roster, but he seems so ingrained and part of the furniture for NXT. It would almost be a little bit strange for him to go up onto Raw or SmackDown, but we'll see. For now, he is so good at putting over the storylines and the people on any of the matches in NXT. He just seems to live and breathe it. So I think that really comes through. So Booker T, well done. I thought you were great on Tuesday. Nothing is void. It says I'm going for Lash, but I think Fallon is winning. Two good shouts there. Yeah, I can see both of those. I just don't think heel should be the champions because Roxanne is heel. Well, we'll go through. Will Roxanne still be champion at the end of the night? That's what I think will be the main event. So we'll go through that at the end. We are, however, going to talk about the triple threat match for the men's North American Championship. So we've got Obafemi, who is the champion, and we've got Joe Kofi of Gallus. And we've got the returning Wesley as well. He's had a couple of matches, but this is his first big premium live event match back, and he's straight back into action for the North American Championship. Really interesting conversation to be had about Obafemi and how his reign's actually been. I think they've elevated him to a position where I don't see how they can elevate him even more with the belt. We've always said this a few times. When there's a triple threat involved, it always feels like it's because one person's going to eat the pin and it keeps the other person protected. Now, is Joe Coffey in this to take the pin and we'll get the belt back on Wesley? We obviously saw that heartbreaking speech he had to do at the back end of last year where he'd had a legitimate back injury and he was out of action for a long time. So it'd be really cool to see Wesley straight back into it. But you don't want to ruin the kind of like mystique that Obafemi's managed to build around himself. I think he's been a pretty decent champion. I really enjoyed the match at Stand and Deliver that he had. Again, was a triple threat. So, hey, what do we know? We don't always get it right. But I kind of see Wesley winning this one back here, as it sounds like it's something that Nothing This Void wants to see as well. Let's go, Wesley. Lee doesn't win, I riot. Yeah, I'd like to see Wesley go back onto it. I think there's a lot more talent that's come through since he's been away, since he was the champion the last time. Plenty of other times to be able to defend it. And I just want to see Obafemi maybe have the weight lifted off his shoulders a little bit with the belt and be able to get into some different kind of storylines and different things to test him out. Because let's not forget, he was still pretty raw. He was doing a lot of level up stuff. He won that breakout championship contract and cashed it in. But we haven't really seen too much of him developing a storyline. This week, obviously, he got attacked by the Gallus boys on top. But I still want to see a little bit more character development from him before I can fully like invest as to who he is. So I'm going to go Wesley on this one. But don't be surprised if Gallus somehow managed to get involved in this match. As they did here, we saw both men, both the champion and the other challenger were attacked by Gallus, who have made a roaring return in the last few weeks back to NXT. We're going to get a bit of NXT Underground again, where we've got Shayna Baszler versus Lola Vice. Now, this is a really interesting match because both women here have actual experience in mixed martial arts. These are, two people who I legitimately believe could knock a lot of different people out or make them submit. But we've got these almost like a clash of styles. Like, yes, they might both be trained in MMA or have MMA experience, but Shayna Baszler is very much kind of kept that side of her, whereas Lola Vice does the sort of like hip thrust, the gyrating, like shakes her ass, and she's very kind of like, doesn't matter, like, I'm going to do that. You can say whatever you want. And she's been a heel and she's still kind of doing it and getting away with it. But when we saw that match against Natalya, where she had her hair like, tied back, slicked back, and very much like I kind of see it as you would in an MMA match, she looked like a badass as well. So she's still got that about her. She can prove that she can still go in the ring as well. So I don't know how akin this is going to be to when Shayna Baszler had that match against Ronda Rousey, where it was more of a sort of like MMA match. This one, I think maybe they could do a little bit more with, because I think Lola Vice knows how to sell a little bit more. She knows how to kind of like delve into a character than Ronda Rousey did, because I think Ronda Rousey just was Ronda Rousey, and there was nothing else kind of like added in there. But I think that maybe these two have worked a bit closer to put on something a bit special. But again, one of the questions I have is like, obviously UFC Apex is set up in a certain way, which is more prevalent for the presentation of UFC and MMA. So it'd be cool to see, are they going to have the ring, like the cage up on some of the matches? Are they just going to have it open? How are they going to do that? Because like, are they just going to move it out and have like a normal NXT ring in? They're going to have to take the ropes off if they're going to do an NXT underground match. So yeah, let's see how they do this one. But nothing is void. Really glad that you are putting in your predictions. Thank you very much for that. He's going for Shayna. Shayna's going to snap her in half. I wouldn't be so sure, because Shayna's got a lot of stuff going on the main roster. I feel like if you wanted to push someone here, Lola Vice is the one to push, because she's going to be the one who's going to be sticking around in NXT. So I would personally think Lola Vice is going to win here, or she can be one of those very close to tapping out with Shayna Baszler. But how much of a statement would that be if she can make Shayna Baszler tap out? But will she be a sort of like unlucky loser? Things like that. Is someone going to get involved? We'll see. But I think Lola Vice is going to win regardless. So I'm going to go against you on that one. Nothing this void. We'll move on. And this is one that I think I've been having a chat with one of my friends, John, about this week, because the Good Brothers arguably have never truly found their lane within WWE as a whole. And it's been an interesting journey for them, because for ages they weren't doing anything. They were released, they were brought back. And even when they were brought back and they were kind of put back into that faction with AJ, they were then kind of dropped and never like really seen. There's rumors that they got that contract where if they don't have anything, then they don't have to go to the show. But they've been appearing for a few weeks now, maybe even like a couple of months on NXT, and almost playing that sort of like that. Yeah, we need to have like opportunities here in NXT, and Axiom and Nathan Fraser haven't been having any of it. They're saying, you guys are main roster, we're not going to give you a shot. They've kind of put themselves in a position where they have earned that shot, and they'll keep kind of like running roughshod over the rest of the NXT roster until they've kind of given in. We've seen this past week there was a fight on the merchandise stand that's outside the Performance Center. So they're putting in the work. And we saw last Saturday, which is probably where this muddies the waters slightly in what I was going to predict originally. I thought they were there just to kind of make Axiom and Nathan Fraser look great. But how cool would it be if the Good Brothers are helping out AJ like they did last week in his kind of fake retirement Mark Henry style thing, and they have the NXT belts with them? That would be a really cool visual. And would AJ come into that? Would AJ help them win? As part of this kind of new faction as well. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with this one, because do you put a bit of shine on the NXT tag team belts, make people ask questions on SmackDown as to, oh, how did they get them? Like, I might have to go check that out, and maybe that's what they do. But yeah, interesting one. Read this one out from Nathan Floyd. Okay, about this, I think Gallows and Anderson are winning, but I want Nathan and Axiom to win. I feel that no one thinks they're winning, so I want them to prove people wrong. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are probably expecting after last Friday, maybe Nathan and Axiom aren't going to win this, but I think they've got every opportunity. Again, it depends on like what the main roster want, and would that actually kind of like, is that what's going to come through here? And Shawn Michaels kind of has to give in to what Triple H wants, because that would be a Triple H call if he wants them to have some sort of tag team title belts to look the part with AJ. Then this is the obvious one to do it with, because DIY is kind of like the challenges across on SmackDown for the A-Town Down Under tag belts at the moment. So yeah, interesting one. Let's see what happens on this. But this has a potential to be a pretty decent match. And because we've never really had a chance to watch the Good Brothers have long matches, which they have had out in New Japan, which they've had elsewhere, maybe this is the weekend where we get to see them put on a show and show the rest of the world and the WWE universe what it is they're about, because you've got two young, very fast, high-flying superstars, as the champions right now, going up against these kind of veterans, and I'm not going to say grizzled young veterans, but they're a bit long in the tooth. They've been around for a little while now, but never really kind of moved on. This is the one tag team belt they've not had in WWE, so they've come to kind of collect. But wherever they've been in the world, they've been successful and they've had belts. So this would be a fascinating watch, because I think it's a real clash of styles, and again, no pun intended there. But will we also see AJ involved somewhere? And this is where things start to get really interesting with NXT Battleground, because we've got the new signing, the all ego Ethan Page. So I've got to admit, I'm not the guy who covers a lot of AEW on Give Me a Hell Yeah or on Wrestling Royalty. So I've had to kind of ask the guys who do watch it a little bit more, what was the presentation like for Ethan when he was on AEW, and like, where did that come from? And the messages that I've kind of received back was that the presentation was never really anything in AEW. I'm just trying to find the message. It was put his Men of the Year gimmick with Scorpio Sky. Could have been great, but they couldn't sustain it. His best work was in TNA in a tag team with Josh Alexander. He's got shades of Kevin Owens, but I think NXT is the right place for him. And then that came from Sam, who obviously you'd normally see with me, but as I said, he's away on holiday at the moment. So yeah, it'd be a really fascinating match to see what they're going to do here, because we had sorry, if you haven't seen NXT for a little while, he kind of jumped Trick and was unveiled as the one who had been doing the backstage attacks on Noam Dar, and so yeah, he's in NXT now. As I say, what the hell? That's Ethan Page. Hold up, I haven't seen NXT in a little while, but what the? He's on WWE now. He signed his contract this week. Apparently had a lot of different things that he was trying to demand off of Ava before he signed the contract, and Trick Williams said just give him what he wants, and one of the things he wanted was an instant championship shot. So he's going to get his championship shot against Trick Williams, because Trick is pissed that he was kind of blamed for it, and he was jumped from behind as well a couple of weeks back, while explaining to Lash Legend that he was innocent and didn't have anything to do with Noam Dar getting attacked. So I have a feeling on this one that Ethan Page will look super strong. I think they'll make him look really, really big, and make him out to be a big deal. But ultimately, I think Noam Dar is going to come out and cost him his championship shot here. But this is also a weird one for Trick Williams, because there's some questions being asked about like what kind of champion is he going to be, because he obviously won the NXT title off of Ilya, and he had that match at Stand and Deliver against Carmelo Hayes. But there's still some questions being asked about him as a performer, and that his, how good a wrestler is he? How good in the ring is he? Because he's got that swagger, he's got that charisma, absolutely. But is he the one who can kind of carry matches? Because I think he's improving. I just don't think he's quite there yet. And I want him to keep hold of that belt and maybe learn on the job as well, because he's got like a really cool finish in that trick knee. He looks like $1 million. He looks like a sort of like his ranginess and his like long limbs. He looks like a sort of like new version of a Booker T, and he uses a lot of the same kind of moveset as well. And that's a good thing. Like if you remember back to when Booker T came onto the scene, just before the invasion angle started, or like around the invasion angle, like that was one of the good things that came out of that, and there wasn't too many things. But I think Trick Williams is in a great position to just keep developing and keep learning, and that's exactly what NXT should be used for. But here he's coming in against this hot new thing that's coming to NXT that, as like Nothing This Void has just pointed out, there's a lot of people who won't even know that he's moved across from AEW to WWE and here NXT. But it's a fascinating clash again, and the championship's on the line. So do we see a really quick title change? Do we see someone like pushed straight off the bat? Because that's going to be a really interesting shout if they go with Ethan Page as the new champion. But what a way to skyrocket him if they do. But yeah, this is one I think we've got. I wouldn't say it's going to be match of the night, but I think there's going to be a lot of shenanigans going on that will develop a little bit of a story coming out of it as well. So definitely one to watch. I'll be watching this with big interest. But he signed his contract, to say, on this past Tuesday, and then continued to attack Trick as well. But we're going to go on to what I think is the main event of the night, because I'm really excited about this one as well. And if you haven't seen NXT in a couple of weeks, you might not even know that Jordynne Grace has been spotted and is on NXT, or as she came out and had a match this past week as well. She came out with her ring gear that said NXTNA. And this is where we've got people salivating that we might get a WWE versus TNA crossover. We might see different people move elsewhere. In particular, are we going to see someone like AJ Styles appear at the upcoming Slammiversary event as well? Because that's, I believe, is a big anniversary, like a 25th or something. So yeah, what we're going to see, even the superstars have been getting on the action on X or Twitter, where you want to kind of say. Drew McIntyre saying the door opens both ways, and had a picture of him when he was, doing his thing outside WWE, holding the Impact belt, I think it was, or the TNA belt. I can't remember what it was when he was out of it, but either way, he's kind of hinted that he would go do that as well. But there's a lot of crossover opportunity there. There's loads of people who have been thinking, like, what would we see? What kind of matches could we see in TNA versus NXT, or TNA versus WWE? We don't have to wonder for Battleground. We're going to get it. It's been signed. It's happening. We've got Jordynne Grace is challenging Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship. So this is one I'm very excited to see how they're going to play this out. But again, if you haven't seen it for a couple of weeks, like Nothing Has already said before, Jordynne Grace, WWE versus TNA would be sick. I already got two, Riddle and Nick Namath. Yeah, there's a lot in terms of like what we could see. And it's interesting that we've got people in prevalent positions like Mustafa Ali and Nick Namath, who have appeared across on TNA now. Would we see that? There's obviously always the chance of like seeing someone like Moose appear. So lots of different people that you might want to see. The tag team division, the X division, plenty of ones that you want to see. Again, do we see the likes of Wesley go against some of his like old Rascals tag team? So lots of crossover opportunity between them. Hello, Matthew. Nice to have you in. Hope you're having a great Friday. Thank you for tuning in and watching along. AEW versus WWE is probably the one that's least likely to happen. But hey, at what point would you have ever thought 5 years ago that we'd see TNA chanted inside an NXT or WWE arena, which is what's been happening in the last couple of weeks? But one thing has stood out when we saw, was it Stevie Turner, Jordynne Grace had a match against this week. Jordynne Grace just smiled the whole way through. Like, she looks like she's having an absolute ball being involved here. This is such a good exposure for her, not just her, because we saw her in the Royal Rumble as well. She's got that TNA Knockouts Championship. She looks great. She looks different. Like, her presentation is different, but she's great on the mic as well. She's interacting with people backstage. So we're kind of getting those, will we see this in the future? How long is this deal going to go on? There's loads of questions. There's lots of interest. But we get to see different things, possibilities like this. Now, some people have said they need to address the fact that anytime that WWE has invited someone from a different company in, they never win. So you kind of like feel like, what's the point in doing it? Now, some people have led that to believe that, do we see Jordynne Grace actually win the Women's NXT Championship? It would be quite a clever move on a couple of fronts. Like, one, I think WWE's interest in Jordynne Grace is legitimate. I think they would love to sign her if and when she becomes available again. I think she's not that long signed a contract with TNA though. But this would keep her sweet in the sense of like, look, you're not even on our roster, you're not even in our company, and we're happy to give you the championship because we trust you. And that would kind of go down well, in contract negotiations in the future. But also, like, seeing the NXT title in TNA would be a weird one. She'd be a double champion. She'd have to come across to do some more NXT stuff at some point as well, you'd think. It'd also give a wrinkle into like Roxanne's character, because she's been developing that heel. But yeah, very, very interesting to see where they go with this one. I personally see this one playing out as a DQ finish. I think Roxanne Perez can maybe you know, delve into that bag of heel tricks and get herself intentionally disqualified to make sure, yes, she loses the match, but she keeps the belt. That hasn't really been addressed by Ava, and maybe that's something that needs to be brought up backstage, where you have a bit where you say, yeah, you might have brought her in from a different promotion, but have you thought about what happens if she loses the belt? And maybe someone needs to have a word of her in her ear about that, and that can be an actual storyline for the GM to have, because they've kind of just presented her as I'm going to make these great matches, but what's the ramifications if your women's champion loses the belt to someone out of a different promotion? So I need them to address that to kind of really make this a thing. But as I said, great to see Jordynne Grace in a WWE ring. She was smashed it at the Royal Rumble. She didn't look out of place at all. In fact, she elevated that start of that match as well. The Knockouts belt looks great. And she just kind of, her appearance has set the social media world on fire in terms of what we want to see, to the point where Matthew says Josh Alexander versus Chad Gable, an absolute technician's dream. And if Chad Gable wins the IC title next week, could we see Josh Alexander come across and challenge for that? Who knows? But this is what I think is going to close the show. I think we'll have this one on here. I think there'll be maybe some sort of interruption that helps Roxanne Perez, because I think she needs something just to boost herself up a little bit, or make her really stand out as the champion, because she's in her second reign. I think she's got it in her to do something special, but she just needs to keep, as probably with Trick Williams, just needs to keep developing. She's in the right place. But to have two champions at the moment, and the face of the business, of the company, and NXT itself, they really need them to kind of step up to the plate, and not be overshadowed by a new signee or someone from a different promotion. These are the people that represent NXT. So I'm sure Shawn Michaels will be saying to both Trick Williams and Roxanne Perez, you need to step up and show what NXT is about. But yeah, really exciting times to be able to kind of say we've got all these different things going on and cooking. I will read out, because Sam asked me to do it. He couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted to have a bit of a say on the kind of TNA side of things, getting involved with NXT. So I'm just going to read out what he says in the message he sent me. He said, for TNA, the exposure is great, but it goes deeper. It's WWE acknowledging them as a rival. This not only puts them over from the sense of being a threat, but it also appeals to the more rebellious and contrarian fans, those who want to stick it to the evil empire of WWE. Essentially makes TNA look like a plucky underdog, like a David versus Goliath. For WWE, they get the pat on the back for playing nicely with others, good publicity for being magnanimous. The creative possibilities are endless, and some of the greener stars in NXT get some amazing in-ring experience. Excuse me, be it from in-ring vets or a new way to approach creative. It's a priceless learning experience, and acknowledging TNA as their official rival really punks out AEW in a number of ways, something that benefits both of those companies. WWE ultimately win, but develop a respect for TNA, which changes the industry forever. Triple H showing that he can play nicely with others. The question is how it ultimately ends. My money is them Godzilla versus King Kong in it. They make their respective top heels the true villains, create a deadly alliance that needs to either be taken down by a joint NXT TNA Avengers, or by their respective heroes on their individual shows. Or they use it as a door for future crossovers. When I approach it in my head as a fiction writer or from a business point of view, what they're doing is exceedingly clever. And I promised Sam I would read that out, because there's a lot of good points in there. Because are we going to see more of this? There's some of the sort of dirt sheets and the insiders are saying that we are going to see more. But interesting to say, we've got a couple of suggestions that we've read out already. If you're watching this in the future, feel free to drop a comment in. What would you love to see? TNA versus WWE, TNA versus NXT. You tell me, what would you like to see? And what are your dream matches if you were kind of putting those two promotions together? Because as Mark, one of our moderators, says, I would have done this partnership closer to War Games Survivor Series. We could have done WWE versus TNA War Games. We might still see that. We might still get a Survivor Series where we have TNA, doing their thing across on WWE main roster, but maybe this is a sort of dipping their toe in, and we'll see how it goes in terms of having a one-on-one match, because having Mickie James or having Jordynne Grace appear in the Royal Rumble is very different from having an actual match. So here we've got the match. in the future, does that mean we get multiple matches, or will we get a men's match next? So lots of questions. And I think all they want to do at the moment is gauge the interest, pique the interest, because if it spikes NXT's ratings and viewership like it seems to have done the last couple of weeks, then they've won out of it. If it spikes TNA's viewership and ratings, they've won out of it. Now, if it does neither of those, then maybe they leave it alone. They go, actually, it's not worth either of our time to do it. Or they come up with an agreement of like, this is what we're going to do moving forward. But for now, my advice would be just enjoy it, because we've got things like we could do like Worlds Collide next for NXT. We've had that before where it was NXT UK versus NXT. Maybe we get TNA instead this time, because obviously NXT UK is defunct. But it's interesting. It's an awesome time, and I think NXT deserves a hell of a lot of credit because it's developing characters, it's developing storylines. As we're seeing this paying off in the likes of Bron Breakker now being on the main roster and arguably having one of the hotter angles at the moment over on Raw. And you know, that conveyor belt of talent dried up a little bit, but now it's starting to get going again. And I think we're going to reap the rewards on the main roster as well. So if NXT is doing well, or as people like to say these days, is cooking, and Shawn Michaels is cooking and he's the chef, then eventually everyone's going to eat well. And in this circumstance, it seems like TNA is going to as well. But yeah, this is going to be a short one tonight because, as I say, it's just me. I've been going on more than long enough, but I am also keen. Make sure you get those comments in and let me know what you're looking forward to on this card. It's a 6-match card this week. We've gone through them. We've got those 6 matches. And we've got a comment here. Is there something happening June or July 17th? Because I decoded what I think is a secret message. It has something to do with either June or July. So I believe, if I'm right, that's to do with the Uncle Howdy stuff, or the Bo Dallas, whatever you want to kind of call it. You can see a lot of that stuff. Dom is our savant, as it were, when it comes to that on Gimme Hell Yeah. I believe that's been the date that they think is going to happen, which would be this Raw after. It's June 17th. It'd be the Raw after Clash at the Castle, which is next weekend. I believe we're expecting something to happen. So Dan is eagerly awaiting that Raw. I know that. And I think he's trying to persuade Dom to join him just in case something does. I personally think they should pull the trigger at Clash of the Castle, because one of the things for that whole faction is they want it to be received well, and they want that noise when he returns. Now, Scotland is going to be rowdy next week. It's going to be loud. So if they can include it, I would implore them to do it when there's a hot crowd, build that level up, and then have it again on the Raw, do something on the Raw. But I think they'd be missing a trick if they just introduce it on a Monday Night Raw instead of at a premium live event. I don't know how everyone else feels. But yeah, June 17th is that date that's been mooted as the arrival of the Wyatt 6 or the Wyatt 5 or whatever it's going to kind of call it. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Last Sean, at least Sean knows how to cook. Now, SummerSlam reference. Yeah, when he super kicked the kid, wasn't it, as well? Sean Aker, good to have you in, my friend. I hope you're enjoying it and having a great Friday. Ethan Page, in my opinion, will shock the world by winning on Sunday. This past Tuesday showed why he could be the face on NXT, especially if he wins, regardless of interference. Yeah, I just have a feeling Noam Dar's getting involved because of what's happened. But from what I understand, the way that they're presenting Ethan Page is very strong compared to how he's ever been before as a solo superstar. So he looks great. He looks like a star. He's been presented as one. He's been presented as a threat, similar to like when they brought in Adam Cole. And he attacked Drew McIntyre straight away. And maybe some people you didn't know who he was. Some people did know who he was because obviously he built that up. There's kind of similarities that could be drawn from there, going straight after the champion. But whether they would be ready to put the belt straight on him, be interesting. I just have a feeling that it's going to be, again, a DQ. But if there is a DQ, would they do that twice in one night with the women's one as well? So I think maybe one of those titles might be changing hands. I certainly think Obafemi is going to be losing the North American. But yeah, really interesting premium live event for WWE to be putting on. They've built a great card. They've built some great momentum going into it as well. So I hope you've all enjoyed that. I've certainly enjoyed talking about it. I am very excited for it on Sunday. I believe at the moment the plan is we'll be doing a hot takes potentially on the Monday, where we'll be talking very briefly and just kind of giving our thoughts straight as soon as we possibly can on NXT, because it is going to be 1 a.m. on a Sunday into a Monday. We do have full-time jobs, so we'll be watching it as soon as we possibly can, and we'll be commenting as soon as we possibly can as well. But make sure you hit that subscribe button and you'll know when that video goes live. I just want to say thank you for everyone who's been joining us. It's been great to have a chat with you all. Join us again next week. Next Friday, we will be talking about Clash at the Castle 2. I don't know if they're calling it 2 or if it's just Clash at the Castle. It will be going on, I believe, sort of 9:15, because we've got SmackDown. We'll be live at 7 p.m. next Friday because we're in the UK, and then we'll do the Friday night feature, and then on the Saturday we'll also have Clash at the Castle. So I hope you all get excited for not just NXT versus TNA as it would be this weekend, but also Clash at the Castle is coming very soon, so we should be getting some go home soon shows as well. Sean Aiken translated into ratings for both shows, and with Ethan, he could show other AEW talent who feel lost in the shuffle or misused to maybe make the jump because of Ethan's booking. That is a very good point, actually. And I hadn't thought of that. If they want to kind of show the grass is greener on the other side, and look what we did for Ethan Page and what we could do for you, then maybe we might be seeing an NXT championship change hands. I'm going to leave it there on that cliffhanger, but I will catch you next week. As always, I've been Andy. This has been Wrestling Royalty, and give me a hell yeah.